What's up, guys? Happy Wednesday. Welcome back to the Finding Hope podcast. I'm your host, Kayla Bundy, and I'm so happy you are a part of this incredible community, this sisterhood, chasing after growth, having actionable steps for change, and to live in the fullness that I believe God created us to. This episode is a fun one because it's all about friendship. And I don't know about you guys, but friends have truly been the biggest blessing in my life. I feel like since I was a kid, even, I've just been blessed tremendously with incredible friendships. And I would not be who I am without my friends. And the ones that have come and gone, there's been such purpose in it. And I think over the years, because God has given me such wonderful people, there also is an obedience that comes with knowing how to steward a friendship well. And I think it's easy to feel as though friends are replaceable, and maybe not even replaceable, but it's normal to think, oh, well, friends are going to come and go. And that's true. But while you have them, I think there's so much to be said about what it is to actually be a good friend in those moments that you have one another. And to not view it as, oh, well, if something goes wrong, then that's fine. They're toxic and I can peace out at any time. Or if it's overwhelming for me to be there for them and to carry their burdens with them, then I don't need to be as close to them in that season. And I think that can be kind of normalized in our day and age right now. And so I just kind of want to speak some truth into that and learn how to actually steward friendships well, and especially be there for your friends when life sucks, and when life sucks for more than a day. Because I don't know about you, but it's so easy to be there for a friend when they have a bad day. But when it's a bad month or a bad year, even, or multiple years, it's exhausting. It's tough. It's not easy. And in the way God calls us to be friends to our brothers and sisters in Christ, it requires a lot of strength. It requires a lot of reliance on the Lord, because to legitimately be there for friends as they need you to be there for them and as we're called to be there for them, it is not something we can do in our human strength. Maybe we can for a day or two, but when it's months, it's a lot harder to keep showing up with new patience, with fresh perspectives, with new grace, with new understanding, with new ears to listen, with new compassion and love for them. So we're going to get into all of that. The things I have just grown to value so much in my close friendships are having someone that feels safe and knowing they are trustworthy, they are loyal, they are honest, they're going to not be a fan of yours, but actually be a friend of yours. And what I mean by that is it's easy, and I honestly am pretty guilty of this, so I really have to be aware of it. It's easy to be a yes and person to your friends and to your family, but I feel like that's where it feels like you're just a fan of them. And to have true friendship, that requires a level of honesty, and it requires a level of knowing how to communicate that honesty to that specific friend, because the way I'm going to communicate to one friend is going to be very different than the next, based on their personalities, how they are, what they react to, what they like. And knowing how to do that for each friend and knowing how you like to be communicated to creates such healthy growth in friendships. And there's a lot of times I hear people in my life that will go to friends for things and they don't get the response or the reaction that they may have needed or wanted in those moments. And because of it, they just dismiss it and they put up these walls and say, well, I'm just not going to talk to them about those things because they didn't know what to say and they didn't handle it well. And I think there's some truth to that. But I also think a lot of times it's easy to put walls up when we've never told them how we feel safe having our walls down. And so really communicating that, hey, that was kind of harsh and I need it to be a little bit softer. Or, hey, you're being way too soft on me right now. It's actually irritating me. I need you to just be firm and truthful and not sugarcoat. And I think just literally communicating what you need is huge in friendships. And when the tough times come, it's a lot less tough to get through when you know how to communicate and you know how they like to be communicated to. Empathy and understanding are also just two things that are so pivotal in a friendship. And when it comes to those tough times, not having that empathy and understanding is so hard. And there's a person in my life that is one of my besties, love her to death. She's absolutely phenomenal. But if she cannot physically relate, and not even relate, but I don't know if you have friends where, or even parents and family members that you're close to, when they don't experience the same issues that you do, or they don't get bothered by it in the ways you do, they don't really have empathy. And in the things that they get bothered by, that you get bothered by, they have empathy and they're incredible and they have all these great things to say and they know how to handle it. But in the areas that they don't relate to themselves, I know it can be very hard for them to have empathy and understanding and compassion. And in those things, that's where the discernment does come in of, okay, have I communicated how I like to be talked to or talked at and how I want you to relay the information? And then after I've said what I am comfortable with, if I still don't feel understood, if I still don't feel like you empathize, if I still don't get a response that feels safe for me to keep my walls down with you and to be vulnerable with you, then I do think it's a good time to reflect and maybe start building those walls up. Not in a place of punishing them at all. I'm never about that. But having boundaries of knowing what friends to go to for what things. Because I've been in really tough times in my life and I know what friends are going to be safe for me to go to, and I know what friends are safe for other things for me to go to. It's not always a one size fits all. And that can be so tough when you have a best friend, when you have a boyfriend, when you have a parent or you have a spouse. It's so easy to want to make that one person your everything and your go-to for everything. But sometimes that's not always the case. And I think the only person that can actually fulfill that role is Jesus and God, because he literally is perfection and he is the biggest comforter and supporter and always speaking truth to us. But when it comes to us humans, we're going to have our strengths and weaknesses. And so knowing what friends are strong in those areas that you need, knowing what friends you don't, knowing what friends you should use your discernment on if you go to them. And if you keep seeking out advice and comfort and sympathy from people that you're not getting it from, you're just going to be left disappointed. And so I want to encourage you that maybe just adjust who you're going to go to for what things. The other qualities that are so important in deep friendship is being present and supportive. I have entered very vulnerable conversations where I can sense that person is not present with me. And it is never fun to experience. And I've done it as well, where I know somebody's saying something very important and vulnerable, and I am not in the headspace to be there for them in that moment and to be present with them in that moment. And I think, again, it comes back to communicating. Because when I sense that I'm saying something that really matters to me and somebody's half listening, I will 1,000% not call them out, but I'll just say, you know what, this really needs your full attention. If you don't have that time and headspace to give it at this moment, that's okay. I'd rather save it and we can talk about something else until you can help focus on this. And that's great. Or if you're the person that isn't in that headspace and they keep talking at you, I do it to my friends all the time. I'll be honest. And I'm like, you know what? I genuinely don't have the capacity to really be present and patient in the ways I know you need. And as much as I would love to talk this out with you, I'm not going to be a great friend at this very second. Can we talk tomorrow? And I think that is so healthy, because when you try to half be there for someone, or when you're half being vulnerable with someone, you're not really going to make any progress. And it's probably going to feel isolating, and it's going to feel like you don't really matter. And that's not true. That person is not saying that, even if their actions might feel that way. They probably just aren't in the headspace to hear you out in that moment. So again, using that discernment and communication of, should I say this to this person? Is this even an appropriate time where I know that they can actually focus? And maybe I even need to communicate and preface, hey, this is important. Can you create an hour out of your day in the next week where I can really confide in you about some things? Some practical ways to be a better friend. If you want some amazing biblical examples of friendship, Ruth and Naomi is just beautiful, especially for girlhood and sisterhood, and the way that they just love each other and look out for each other and take care of each other is beautiful. And then David and Jonathan are also such a wonderful example of what true friendship is in a biblical perspective. On to more of the practical ways to be a good friend when your friends are suffering and in a time of need. Show up for them. Literally just show up for them. It's so simple, and that's one thing I want to press into first, is the importance of them knowing you are there and you aren't tired of hearing it. In your head, it's not a one and done. It's not oh, I had one conversation with you and that's it. But it's the showing up and the follow-ups. So if your friend's going through it, I'm going to give you some brief examples of how to show up for them, because I think there's a difference of self-sacrificing in a way that takes away from you and it exhausts you, it drains you, and you end up enabling them because of how much you're self-sacrificing and how much you're trying to take on their weight. And then there's the flip side of being there as a friend, but not taking on their issues and their emotions as your own, not being affected by it yourself, but being able to be that stronghold and be that rock for them without enabling them, without exhausting yourself, without feeling drained by it. So, some things that I've learned, because it has been a trial and error process for me. I think it's easy to feel like you need to go above and beyond for your friends when they're having a tough time. Or it can be easy to feel like, oh, well, I talked to them once and it's their thing. I don't want to be nosy. And either extreme, I think, is pretty unhealthy, or it just doesn't build friendship in a deep way where both people feel super poured into and supported. And I think this is why I want to press into the follow-up and the importance of it, because it can be small things, but just showing up for your friends makes a huge difference. And if your friend, and when I say friend, this could be your family, this could be your sisters, this could be the person you're dating. This is not just a friend. It can be any sort of relationship that you have. But if they express that they're going through a tough time, or you know that they're going through a tough time, showing up for them daily or weekly is so great. And it goes so much farther than you ever would think. And it can be a simple text that, hey, I thought about you this morning and I just want to let you know I love you and I'm here to support you. And that's it. But following up every few days and sending something like that is so valued, and they will feel so supported by you. I also think it's great. I'll do this for my friends or my sisters when I know they're having a tough week, is doing things that I know they appreciate and doing some acts of service. And when I know my friend has had an insane week and they are so overwhelmed with work, with life, with relationships, we don't have to have a deep talk about it. I can literally just wake up on a Monday, Venmo them $10 and say, coffee on me this morning. I love you and you're doing great. And those little things make the biggest difference and they go so far. And it doesn't have to be these huge things where you give hours and hours of your time or you do all these things to go above and beyond for your friends, and then you end up feeling exhausted and depleted and like you have no time and space for yourself. It can just be small things that make the greatest impact. And I'm not saying don't do big things for your friends, but there's really a lot of power in those small moments. The second thing is active listening. I think this kind of goes back to being present and supportive, but being an active listener for your friend, not in a way where you are just trying to get them to hurry up and wrap up their thoughts and get through it and process it so you guys can move on, but being there, even if it takes days and days of hearing the same things over and over, being an active listener, it doesn't go unnoticed. It is appreciated. And also knowing your friend, because some friends you need to have those boundaries with. If your friend is very much a victim mindset type of person, then being an active listener is great once or twice. After that, it's good to have those boundaries and say, hey, listen, I've heard you out. I'm here for you. I'm supportive of you. But I think we need to view this in a different way. And I think we need to shift our perspective if we're going to keep talking about it, because we're just going in circles here. But if your friend's not a victim mindset type of person and they just need to externally process, let them externally process and listen. Be an active listener. I'm definitely an external processor, and I might say the same things a million times just to get my thoughts out. But I don't just talk to talk. I'm always talking because I'm trying to seek a different outcome. I'm trying to seek a different mindset. I'm trying to seek the truth that's in this situation. Whereas I've had friends that they want to talk because they just feel sorry for themselves and they're very victim oriented and they want you to know and understand how horrible they have it. And that's different. That I'm not a fan of. I don't think those friendships are very healthy regardless. And I think they require a ton of boundaries and a ton of communication and a ton of knowing your role as a friend and not taking on their weight and their emotions and what they're going through. Because there's a difference of empathizing and sympathizing with your friends versus the friends making you feel like you need to be suffering right there with them. That I think is very unhealthy. The last practical step is being honest and respectful. I want to also add honoring your friends. Be honest, be honoring, and be respectful, because you can be honest and you can't honor them, and you can be honest and you're not very respectful to them. And even if you're respectful but you're not honest, or you're honoring them and you don't have honesty and you're not being respectful to them, it doesn't really hit home. It doesn't really help anything, in my opinion. So being honest, honoring them, and respecting them enough to tell them the truth and to help them get to a better place. And it sucks. It's not fun. And the Bible talks about, better are wounds from a friend than kisses from an enemy. And it's saying that, hey, the truth can hurt and it can create some wounds in friendships. It can create some painful things to be honest and respectful to your friends. But it's so much better to have that than just pretend that everything's okay. And when they're going through it, and like I said, it's easy to be there for your friends when they go through it for a day. When they're going through it for months, for years, it is really hard to keep showing up with patience and fresh eyes and love and compassion. And being honest and honoring and respectful can be very, very difficult. And so with those sort of circumstances and seasons in life, I want you to really press into the Holy Spirit and let him fill you and let him guide you and direct you in everything, of course. But I definitely think in deep relationships where someone you love is suffering and they're suffering for a while, it can be really challenging to know how to keep navigating that day after day, week after week. And so I really want you to press into, Lord, what do I say? Should I say this to them? Should I not? I've been doing that constantly recently, of taking it to God in prayer and really trying to create silence to hear what I should do. Because there's a lot of times where I think something that I feel would be honest and respectful to tell them, but I have to rely on the Holy Spirit to guide me into, okay, should I say this, and how should I say this, and how do I not be hurtful in this, and how can I have a good approach to this? And just praying God even creates that space and that opportunity for you to speak truth into the situation. And praying for that strength, praying for that patience, for that renewal. And something that has been really helpful for me with knowing what boundaries to set with my friends is just when I do start feeling that exhaustion and I start feeling run down and my patience is running thin, not just with them, but with everyone, I'm getting more irritated. That's a clear sign that I'm actually trying to be there for them as a friend all on my own, and I've left God out of it. Because when God's involved, our strength comes from the Lord. And when my strength comes from myself, I run dry pretty quick and I'm pretty weak. And so if you are feeling those ways, I want to encourage you right now, give that to God. And when I say give that to God, I mean let him guide you in it. And before everything you're going to do, get his permission and get his confirmation. Because when I say give it to God, I'm not saying, okay, great, God's got them, he's going to love them, you can bow out now, because that's not it. But when I say give it to God, I mean, don't make decisions and don't take action or speak unless he says to. And I know that sounds kind of crazy, and I'm not saying God's going to just tell you, hey, send them a text, say this to them, but he really will give you peace. And if you don't feel that, or if you don't really get an answer, then you don't need to do anything. And I do this a lot where there are friends that I know are going through it, and I don't know if it's appropriate for me to reach out and to try to comfort them or not. And so I'll seek the Lord in that, and I'll just straight up ask God, should I send them a text? If you want me to text them, give me something to send them and let it come from you. And if I have thoughts that feel right and feel from him, then I'll do it. If I don't, if I kind of feel nothing, then I go, okay, well, then, I pray that you use someone else, or I pray that they are able to just need you, or I pray that they are able to just be filled by you and nothing else. And so that helps a lot, honestly, with not getting sick of your friends complaining or tired of hearing the same thing or seeing them suffer for so long. Because I've also been in times where it's not tiring for me, but it breaks me. And there's been times where the people I love so much, I see them being attacked and criticized and suffering and going through things that they never, ever should have to go through. And it's so sad and it's heartbreaking. And it can break me to watch that process. And it can break me to know that they are feeling the weight of their situation. And so giving that to the Lord, because his strength is what is going to fuel us, and his cup overflows, not ours. Let it always come from him. As we're listening today, I do hope you know that everything I'm saying is both-sided, and it is a two-way street. Whether you're the friend that is going through a tough time or you're the friend comforting someone in a tough time, everything I'm talking about really should always bounce off of one another, and it should not be unequally weighted. And I do think, though, when friends are going through tough times, having grace to know that the scales might not be even 24/7, but knowing that both of you view each other in an equally important, valued way. And when that's the case, then it's okay for the scales to tip. And it's okay if one friend needs a little bit more help being lifted up than the other and that it teeter-totters. That's beautiful. That's friendship. But that can only exist when both people are fixed on the Lord first and then fixed on loving one another as brothers and sisters and allowing God to show them how to do that. And last thing I want to say with praying and seeking guidance from the Lord, something I want to really encourage you to pray that is going to be so helpful is, dear Lord, help me to love them in the same ways you love them so they recognize that this comfort is coming from you and not from me. On that note, friendship is so powerful. It's truly my favorite thing. And I've also had to learn that, yeah, people come and go, but they were never yours. They're God's. They're God's first. And it's so sad when seasons change and you either grow apart and you have to say goodbye to friendships. But while you have people you love around you, I just hope this helps you steward that friendship so much better and makes us more obedient to what a Christ-centered friendship looks like. I love you all, and I hope you have the best week. I'll talk to you next Wednesday.